have kids. Get married and have kids. And yes, in that order. But do it. Do it now. Or at least sooner than you think you should. Especially if you're ambitious and on the move. Embrace the chaos. Embrace your nature. Make it the rock-solid, rebar-reinforced concrete foundation of your identity. And when you do, you might just discover the biggest secret of our age, that having kids is the ultimate act of liberation. Having kids is also a rebellion against a culture consumed by corruption and contrived catastrophe.
The United Nations warns that the Earth is now in an era of global boiling.
The Earth is suffering a crisis of mass extinction.
It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine, because I've just decided to give up.
There's plenty of reasons to rebel against this culture. It's a culture that's produced the highest levels of anxiety and depression we've ever seen. We're wealthier than any people to ever walk this planet, yet we're increasingly stuck in place, unsure which direction to walk. And can you blame us? I sure don't. For decades, self-appointed gurus from the left, and now increasingly the right, have discovered that they can make themselves rich and famous by convincing you to reject family, fatherhood, and the future itself.
When you date, are you thinking this is gonna be my wife?
Probably not gonna get married. It's just it's a big L for men in the United States.
Financial suicide.
Me and my wife seem to get a lot more active enjoyment out of not having kids than anyone I know seems to get out of having kids.
Some proclaim that humanity is a scourge on the planet, a population bomb waiting to explode, or already has.
Human beings have overrun the world.
Oh, humanity is not sustainable.
Why do we need more kids?
This message, couched in concerns about climate change, dominates our elite discourse.
People under the age of 35 are more likely to report climate change as a reason not to have children.
I am giving up my dream of having a family because I will only have children if I know they have something to live for.
We're not sure that we're gonna have kids because we don't want to bring our kids into a world like this.
Meanwhile, influencers celebrate the single life as liberation from the patriarchy.
When you have kids, you can't just walk around your house in the middle of the day smoking weed. But that's exactly what I'm doing.
I think it's not a need for women anymore. We don't need to have children. We find that our own happiness is more important. Our own mental health is more important.
I'm still reaching a lot of mums with kids and misogynistic men that keep telling me how lonely and sad my life is.
While others dare us all to be dinks. No, not those dinks. These dinks, or dual income, no kids households.
We're dinks. We go to Trader Joe's and workout classes on the weekends.
We're dinks. We get into snobby hobbies like skiing and golfing.
We're dinks. We spend our discretionary income on $8 lattes.
Yes. Nothing says path to sustained human flourishing like $8 lattes and trips to Trader Joe's on the weekends. I must have missed these crucial pillars of Aristotelian ethics in philosophy class. The good, the true, the beautiful. Is Sunday morning at Starbucks. And if that laundry list of left-wing critiques and silly selfishness isn't enough for you, red pill right-wingers are ready to say, hold my beer.
Here, hold 'em beer. Now we see who swing the fastest gun.
I don't think many men actually benefit from marriages or relationships anymore.
It does not make sense for men to get married in 2024. It is just a fact.
One side moves the Overton window until it's a perfect view of hell, and then the other side throws a rock through it to let the flames flood the room.
This is fine.
Is the planet really in peril from growing human population? Is your path to personal life satisfaction supercharged by going your own way? Not so fast. Mark Twain famously said,
"It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so."
And when it comes to starting a family, preserving the planet, and finding fulfillment, what too many people know, well, you get the picture.
Aha!
I'm here, and this channel exists to say that becoming a parent in general, and a dad in particular for my fellow guys out there, can not only give your life purpose like no other choice you face, but can also free you to pursue your dreams in ways you never thought possible. It's true. I've experienced this total liberation firsthand. Searching for ego death? Look no further. And in this episode, I'm gonna share exactly how that can happen and explore the myriad of maniacal forces working to keep this secret from you and why. If you're among the millions of people nervous about our planet, our future, and hesitant to bring people into it, I totally get it. So here's my challenge to you. Take a deep breath, keep an open mind, and stick around. You'll be happier for it. I'm John Popola, and this is Dad Saves America. If you like these videos and want to make sure the mighty algorithm notifies you when a new one drops, please be sure to hit the like button, click subscribe, and ring the all bell so you won't miss the next one. But you know what's even better? Visit dadssavesamerica.com and join our growing, decentralized community. We've got exciting plans for exclusive content in the months ahead, including providing all the research and references that go into writing these videos. Right now, there are more than 8 billion people living on planet Earth.
Billions?
Is this a problem? Do we already have too many people? According to a recent UN report on the state of global population, the most commonly held view across 8 countries was yes, global population is too high.
It's too damn high.
The question I have is, too high compared to what? And why? Top among people's concerns, and maybe your own as well, were economic and environmental impacts. Simply put, people are worried that we won't have enough food and other resources to provide a good life for every person on this planet. And even if we can, we'll burn up the planet trying to do so. It's no wonder then that a separate, equally massive 10-nation study found that half of 16 to 25-year-olds believe that humanity is doomed.
I'm here because I don't have a future.
To show the impact that the climate change is having on our kids. We're taking away their future.
How dare you!
With nearly 40% saying that this fear has made them reluctant to have kids themselves.
The best thing I can do for the environment is not to have any children.
They will not have children or have any more children because of climate change.
Is humanity headed towards extinction? Is time really running out? Are we at the tipping point for civilization?
We seem to be hurtling off a cliff edge of climate devastation.
As it turns out, none of these worries are remotely new. In fact, the nickname we've given these sorts of concerns, Malthusian, dates back over 220 years. In 1798, English cleric and scholar Thomas Malthus wrote the now famous and infamous book, An Essay on the Principle of Population. Malthus predicted that population growth in England, if it continued its rapid ascent, could not be sustained because the ability to produce food and supplies would not keep up. Famine, disease, and war would surely follow. To better understand where Malthus was coming from, let's jump in a data time machine and zoom back to England of the 16 and 1700s. The country's population had doubled from around 4 million people in 1600 to over 8 million in 1798, and most of that growth had happened in the last 50 years. Malthus was living through a population explosion. So, how did Mr. Malthus do? Did his hypothesis survive the test of time? Well, this one is easy, folks, because no, not by a long shot. The population of England has increased 8-fold, from around 8 million to over 67 million since Malthus made his prediction. And so has the population of Earth itself, from 1 billion in 1800 to over 8 billion today. We can forgive Thomas Malthus for failing to predict the enormous technological transformations that made this population boom possible. From machinery to modern fertilizers, we've radically increased how much food we can produce on any given acre of land. And we have ways of transporting it around the globe that were utterly inconceivable in 1800. Science is never settled, and especially so-called social science. But this Malthusian myth is as close to an open and shut case as we've ever had.
Open and shut case, Johnson.
What's much harder to understand is how any modern Malthusianism survives the empirical facts today. How do people like Paul Ehrlich, author of The Population Bomb in 1968, or Dennis Meadows, co-author of The Limits to Growth in 1972, stand by their failed predictions with a straight face?
Sometime in the next 15 years, the end will come. By the end, I mean an utter breakdown of the capacity of the planet to support humanity.
Why did Ehrlich become a fixture of late-night TV for decades?
You have to get the death rate and birth rate in balance, and there's only two ways to do it. One is to bring the birth rate down, the other is to push the death rate up.
That overpopulation remains a popular fear today is first a failure of our culture to reflect reality and of our education systems to teach us the truth.
You can't handle the truth!
The fear of doom is rooted deeply in our human nature, the inescapable fact that each and every one of us must confront our own mortality. Famed psychologist Sigmund Freud called this penchant for death and self-destruction Thanatos, after the Greek mythological personification of death. And yes, the Avengers do have Freud to thank for inspiring their best cinematic villain.
This universe is finite, its resources finite. If life is left unchecked, life will cease to exist.
Speaking of the movies, disaster director Roland Emmerich has $4 billion in box office receipts as proof of this Freudian fear. And I count myself among the moviegoers that loves a great disaster flick. But maybe we shouldn't be making our life decisions based on the plot of Moonfall.
The moon falling onto Earth?
So, let's dig into the facts so we can defeat this fear together. First, of course, the population of Earth has exploded in the past 200 years, from under 1 billion to over 8 billion. Incredible. But how are these 8 billion people living, you might wonder? Are the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer? Nope, not at all. The fact is, as our population has exploded, so has just about everyone's material well-being. All of human history, up until the time of Thomas Malthus and the Enlightenment-powered miracle that followed, was marked by horrible infant mortality. Estimates put the average at 49% across all of pre-industrial society. Then boom.
Boom.
Our science and tech-powered population boom also led to the absolute collapse of child mortality, which accelerates the boom itself.
Boom, 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 we're done.
But this change is even more recent than you might think. Did you know that 1 in 4 children born on Earth in 1950 didn't see their 15th birthday? 1 in 4. Today that number is less than 5 in 100. Your chances of seeing adulthood today are an almost A+ grade of 96%.
What's the old 96er?
How did that happen? Again, because Malthus was wrong.
Wrong again.
People aren't net consumers. We're creators. We're innovators. We use our big brains to constantly invent new ways of doing more with less.
Check out the big brain on bread.
Economist Julian Simon blew up the population bomb way back in 1981, noting that human ingenuity is the ultimate resource. And the reason why, as his original cover noted, natural resources and energy are getting less scarce. Pollution has been decreasing. The world's food supply improving. Population growth, it turns out, has long-term benefits when people are creators. We're producing more food on less land with fewer people farming than ever before. Literally, half of humanity farmed in Malthus's time. Less than 2% of Earth does today, and they feed all of us. So thank you, farmers. We need each of you now more than ever.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Famines, especially due to weather and natural causes, which have plagued all of human history, are all but extinct today. The famines that have occurred in the past 50 years, such as in Maoist China and communist North Korea, are entirely the product of top-down totalitarian policy failures. They are acts of terrible men, not God or Mother Nature.
Why is everyone so stupid? Why aren't more people intelligent, like me?
Obviously, people not dying is a major reason for our explosive population growth. But how well are we living? Well, consider this. What today is called a middle-class life would be experienced as the life of kings and queens in Malthus's time. No, scratch that. Today's middle-class lifestyle would be the envy of kings and queens from 200 years ago. And roughly half of planet Earth's population today lives a middle-class life. Half. 4 billion people live in homes with food, clean water, plumbing, electricity, heating and cooling, washing machines, TVs, mobile phones, internet access, automobiles, etc., etc. Think about that. Today we have 4 times as many people as Earth's entire population in 1800, living a life wildly better than Thomas Malthus could have ever possibly imagined. Over 3 billion of them are active Facebook users.
3 billion?
Look, life on Earth isn't perfect, and far too many people still go without. And too many people spend too much time on social media. But it's telling that among the biggest problems impacting many people today, and they are very real, are the products of our plenty, like diabetes, digital media overdosing, and the like.
Smack 'em, smack 'em.
Meanwhile, people living in extreme poverty on less than $2 a day has fallen to less than 9% of the global population and continues to fall. That's down from over 35% in 1990. We are on a path to erasing absolute poverty from the face of the earth. By hunter-gatherer standards, one could say we already have. All of this data is public and easily available with simple web searches. Or you can take a look at early pictures of, say, New York and compare them to pictures of Bombay, India. The latter makes the former look like a backwards hellscape. Almost everything we have and take for granted today looks like magic to people not that long ago.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
Even our serially confused and too often corrupt global elite can't help but recognize that the Malthusians are wrong. In that UN report showing that people around the world are worried that the population is too high, the authors wisely note there is ample evidence from history that the fears stirred by this false narrative lead to horrors and inhumanity. What else is lost with the ringing alarm of too many? The real and powerful story of progress and the lessons of that progress. We start to see human survival as a problem rather than an achievement, and we retreat to ancient divisions, us versus them, instead of seeking common ground and solutions through solidarity and innovation for the common good. Finding a UN report to be insightful and even inspiring is, shall we say, a pleasant and unexpected surprise.
Say what?
But there you have it. Our world is filled with wonders. When you recognize that our creativity is the ultimate resource, it changes the way you think about having kids and the kind of contribution that really is. Maybe your son or daughter will discover the cure for cancer. Yes, we create lots of trash. But we're also able to turn yesterday's trash into tomorrow's treasure. Consider that in 1859, Edwin Drake dug the first crude oil well in Pennsylvania to distill the oil for kerosene lamps. He and others who followed him, including John D. Rockefeller's Standard Oil, dumped the remaining byproducts of that distilling process out as trash into the rivers, including a then useless liquid called gasoline. 30 years later, with the invention of the automobile, that river-polluting trash suddenly turned into a treasure that powers our modern world, and our rivers are cleaner as a result. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Sure, we took the gas out of the river and put it in our tanks, but that's like jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire, isn't it? We're pumping our atmosphere with greenhouse gases. That's the real existential threat we all should be worried about. Humanity might be getting richer, but we're ultimately going to set our whole planet on fire to do it, and the tipping point is upon us. Let's remember our scientific method as we explore the crisis that's keeping our kids up at night and could be kids from being conceived. Surely our modern material progress has come at the expense of an unsustainable ravaging of our planet's finite resources, right? The story of stuff can't be a happy environmental ending. Can it? Just ask any of the millions of kids who've been subjected to Annie Leonard's The Story of Stuff in their environmental classes for the last decade.
We live on a finite planet, and you cannot run a linear system on a finite planet indefinitely. It's a system in crisis.
Nobody wants to turn a dirty, degraded world over to our children and grandchildren. And we can see that waste has come with our wealth. Up to 40% of all food in America ends up wasted. We all buy stuff we turn out to not like or use and fill our trash cans every week. We should embrace our responsibility as stewards of the natural world. Our unique ingenuity has given humanity total domination over life on Earth. If we don't take care of the planet, nobody else will. And if you listen to the voices promoted in our media, you would think we're doing the worst possible job.
Climate change is ravaging the planet.
Environmental pollution contributed to the deaths of about 9 million people.
We could start seeing worsening food shortages and wildfires and a mass die-off of coral reefs.
Are they right? Is humanity like a bunch of bros who went on a bender in Vegas and trashed the place?
We f***ed up.
The headlines say we are. We've trashed the land, air, the rivers, and the seas. And then there's climate change. Extreme weather events are on the rise. The coral reefs are vanishing. The sea levels are rising fast. Biodiversity is collapsing as humanity's growth causes a sixth great extinction event, the Anthropocene extinction. It's only a matter of time until Mother Nature rebalances and wipes humanity from the earth. In the face of all this, how could anyone want to have kids? We've surely reached the tipping point, haven't we? Maybe that broken Malthusian clock is finally about to be right on time. And this time, it really is a crisis, a world-ending catastrophe in the making, escape from which may already be impossible. That is a really scary story, and one that's been heard millions of times from prominent politicians, academics, and activists.
The survival of our civilization is at stake, and it sounds dire, but it is dire.
But 3 degrees of global warming would be catastrophic.
We're going to pass the point of no return within the next 8 to 10 years.
Our kids are bombarded by it, starting in kindergarten.
All things will die. The human race will have fallen to any number of calamities. War, pollution, global warming.
So it's no wonder that 84% of 16 to 25-year-olds are worried about the climate crisis. 45% said that their feelings about climate change negatively affected their daily life and functioning. Is it any wonder young could-be parents are skittish? A 20-year-old teacher in Brooklyn told Business Insider, "I would be raising them in a world that is essentially dying," which is kind of hard to grapple with emotionally. Again, she is not alone. 40% of those 16 to 25-year-olds are reluctant to have kids themselves due to worries about climate anxiety. Did the environmental movement shift the goalposts a few times along the way? Sure, they did, from global cooling.
What scientists are telling us now is that the threat of an ice age is not as remote as they once thought.
To the ozone layer.
The protective ozone layer is being threatened as never before. We're all at risk.
To global warming.
There is a troubling indicator about global warming.
And now, climate change.
600,000 Hiroshima-class atomic bombs exploding every single day on the Earth. That's what's boiling the oceans, creating these atmospheric rivers and the rain bombs.
Has our truth been made inconvenient by a 20-foot rise in sea level? No, not yet. Celebrities and former presidents can still buy beachfront properties and get them fully insured. But that's science, you say. Observe, hypothesize, test, review, and revise. The problem is that most of that big story is just plain wrong.
Climate change? Climate change. Give me climate change.
Some of it are truths exaggerated past the breaking point. Others are flat-out fabrications. The overall takeaway that our world is going to get worse for people and the rest of life on Earth is not supported by even the most mainstream scientists. Our world is not going to end.
Now I feel better.
It's going to keep getting better, as long as we don't kill ourselves in a nuclear war, that is. Philosopher of science Karl Popper introduced an important test to any scientific hypothesis. Can it be falsified? If you can contradict a theory with empirical evidence that refutes it, you've falsified that theory and disproven its underlying assumptions about cause and effect. All of modern history since 1798 has falsified Thomas Malthus and Paul Ehrlich's theories about overpopulation.
He falsified his research.
But what about today's climate crisis claims, including those of Ehrlich and his ilk? Here's a few falsifying facts to consider. Are extreme weather events actually on the rise? No, they're not. According to NASA scientists, the area burned globally by forest fires has declined by over 25% in the past 20 years. That's an area the size of Texas. Landfalling US hurricanes are flat and have slightly declined over the past 120 years. In fact, the real cost of natural disasters is declining everywhere after you adjust for GDP growth. You see, since the whole world has gotten more populous and more wealthy, driving up GDP, we have more wealth to be damaged in a hurricane, but we also have even more income to pay for the repairs than ever before. Deaths due to flooding globally have declined. As Alex Epstein has noted in his research, climate-related disaster deaths have plummeted 98% over the last century, even as CO2 has risen substantially. Those are some pretty inconvenient truths for those hoping to scare the future family out of you.
I don't really want kids.
Parts of the famous Great Barrier Reef recorded their highest levels of coral in 36 years, according to the Australian Institute of Marine Science. That's heartening news for all you responsible scuba divers out there. Now, about that sixth great mass extinction we hear so much about. If an extinction event happens in the forest and all of the animals are still around afterward, is it still an event?
To be considered a mass extinction event, over 90% of your species have to be going extinct or on the verge of extinction. Just 6% are.
Here's the real problem. If you really do care about our environment.
I care. I care a lot.
Fear-mongering climate crisis rhetoric has crowded out the fact that conservationists and animal advocates have made enormous progress on protecting endangered species and habitats. Thanks to that work and our material progress, the truth is that our kids' future is not a dying world, but one brimming with diverse and expanding life.
Life, finds a way.
It's also a world getting substantially greener. According to NASA, increased carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has led to substantial plant growth over the past 35 years. As the NASA study notes, the greening represents an increase in leaves on plants and trees equivalent to the area of 2 times the continental United States. 2 times the US in additional greening on all of Earth's surface. This is amazing, but it really shouldn't be that surprising. If you remembered one thing from 9th grade biology, it's gotta be that CO2 is essential plant food.
But Brondo's got what plants crave.
It's got electrolytes.
Do you still think we're heading towards a crisis that should stop your family line in its tracks? Maybe you're holding out for that mythical tipping point pundits and activists love to trot out in the name of inducing political urgency for their favorite new policies.
They say the Green New Deal is too expensive. You tell me the alternative.
We're investing more than $50 billion.
We have to get to 100% renewable energy.
Well, if we aren't already in a climate hell, there's little reason to think we will tip into one because carbon emissions have likely already peaked globally. In the most advanced economies like here in the US, the UK, and elsewhere, carbon emissions peaked over a decade ago. How is that possible, you might ask? Well, one thing is the shift from coal to dramatically cleaner natural gas, but also things like the iPhone. Think about it. All of this has been replaced by this small slate of metal and glass.
This is truly amazing. A portable television studio.
We really are doing more with less every year, including less people. If there's a tipping point to worry about, it's not CO2. It's our global population decline. Most demographers are revising their estimates downward. Some project the global population to plummet to 6 billion people by 2100.
The full gravity of this is not well understood, but will become a severe issue in the in the next few decades.
Unlike 75 years of future global weather, demographics are a much more straightforward thing to forecast. China can't start producing new 30-year-olds, for example. Nobody can. And this right here is a perfect demonstration of how our public opinions can be wildly off from actual reality. Overpopulation remains a major worry in the public consciousness for literally no reason at all.
Too many people, too much consumption, and growth mania.
So ask yourself, if most people can be wrong about this fact, it's at least possible that our alarm over climate is similarly off the mark. And since the same people who were wrong before and are still wrong on population are the ones sounding the loudest climate alarm,
Rate of extinction is extraordinarily high now.
I think deep suspicion is in order. Finally, what about those dire predictions about our future? Are we heading towards a world of poverty or worse, human extinction itself? You'd think so if you only read the headlines. Code red for humanity, mass starvation, extinctions, disasters. And then there's this whopper that went viral a couple of years ago.
The world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change.
There's just one problem with all this coverage. It's all conjecture, hyperbole. No, it's worse. It's mostly lies.
You sit on a throne of lies.
And you don't need to stray from the mainstream sources of climate research to debunk this dystopian tale. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, is the world's leading curator of climate research. And catastrophe is not at the heart of its underlying research, the Physical Science Basis Report. Now, these IPCC projections are just that, projections. They're computer-based guesses about the path of our entire society over the next 75 years. And here's the thing, we can't use computer models to predict the outcome of the Super Bowl. Any given Sunday, the worst team can beat the best.
That's football, guys.
Yet there are trillions of variables and individual human choices involved in these climate models, never mind the insane, complex, fluid dynamics of global weather. So skepticism is in order big time, even if the actual research is broadly positive, which it kinda is. You can't find the words extinct or extinction anywhere in its 2,400 pages. You can't find crisis either. Collapse? Nope. Disaster? Nada. Download it for yourself and give it a try. Real scientists don't use this kind of bombastic, emotionally charged language. But that's not the most important part of the story.
What is this? Are you trying to trick me?
Wait, just wait. Keep your shirt on, let me read.
The lead that gets buried so deep you need a jackhammer to unearth it lies in what's called the Shared Socioeconomic Pathways, or SSPs. These are 5 scenarios developed by the climate research world to project the path of humanity, ranging from SSP1, sustainability, or taking the green road, to SSP5, fossil fuel development, or taking the highway. Each SSP scenario tries to predict a different path of carbon use and human development between now and the year 2100. Now, are you ready to have your mind blown? None of these scenarios predict doom. None of them. Take a look. In all 5 scenarios, income per person on Earth is higher in 2100 than it is today. Consider the lowest growth scenario, SSP3, regional rivalry, or a rocky road as they call it.
Rocky Road?
It imagines a world of resurgent nationalism and regional conflicts where investments in education and technological development decline, and a low international priority for addressing environmental concerns. Humanity is only 2 times richer in this scenario. And if we take the high carbon highway to a hotter planet, SSP5, well, humanity is 10 times wealthier in 2100. We're also much more capable of mastering whatever climate-related challenges come our way as a result.
Yes! Look what I have created!
Yes, the climate is changing, and human activity contributes to that change. But there is no crisis. Catastrophe doesn't await. There is no extinction we need to rebel against. And you unequivocally do not need to be afraid for your future or forego the joys of building a big family in the name of saving the planet. That's not me talking. That's the underlying research of the world's leading scientists and experts. Why then do so many people believe the opposite? What is going on here? Why are young activists defacing precious art and gluing themselves to all sorts of things while they burn baby carriages if the leading climate science models project a wealthier world in their worst case scenarios?
Why?
Why?
The reason is that too many of our most influential people at the commanding heights of our culture have embraced the romantic religion of 18th century French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau. In this pseudo-biblical story, life on Earth existed in a delicate, harmonious balance. Primitive people lived lives of simple, peaceful plenty and tranquility, equality, and self-sufficiency. Our impacts on the rest of life on Earth were little more than those of other animals who, again, we coexisted with in harmony. That is, of course, until the great Satans of modern civilization, industrialization, colonialization, and capitalism ruined everything. Having eaten from that forbidden fruit, we fell from grace and have been a plague on Mother Earth ever since. Every impact we leave on this planet is an immoral act of desecration. Our only hope to cleanse this original sin is to eliminate every human impact.
Today, we are the asteroid that's causing many, many species to go extinct.
This is the narrative of the noble savage, the idyllic indigenous peoples. It's the plot of countless movies, from Avatar to Dances with Wolves to Planet of the Apes. For the leading lights of climate alarmism, the collapse of human civilization isn't a future to fear, but a goal to embrace. Consider how biologist David M. Graeber describes his shared philosophy with leading environmentalist Bill McKibben. McKibben is a biocentrist, and so am I. We are not interested in the utility of a particular species or free-flowing river or ecosystem to mankind. They have intrinsic value, more value to me than another human body, or a billion of them. Human happiness, and certainly human fecundity, are not as important as a wild and healthy planet. Until such time as Homo sapiens should decide to rejoin nature, some of us can only hope for the right virus to come along.
Think.
Or consider Paul Ehrlich himself, who wrote about cheap, carbon-free nuclear energy in 1975. Giving society cheap, abundant energy at this point would be the moral equivalent of giving an idiot child a machine gun. With cheap, abundant energy, the attempt clearly would be made to pave, develop, industrialize, and exploit every last bit of the planet. We need to reject this dangerous dogma, first and foremost, because it is false.
Pure fiction. It's false. No way. It's a total fabrication.
Look, I don't believe this anti-human perspective is a majority view among environmentalists or young people. This is a minority fringe, but it is an influential one, and its views inform the entire framework of our discussion. Humanity's survival on this planet has never been a story of balance with a benevolent Mother Nature. The animal kingdom is brutal, defined by predators and prey. Mass extinctions have marked Earth for millions of years. Just ask the dinosaurs. And most human history is filled with huddled masses whose lives were scarred and shortened by struggle. We were all natives made restless by the death of our children, routine famine, and constant conflict. This romantic view of the natural world has always been a fantasy, a naturalistic fallacy, an unjustified dream of Jean-Jacques Rousseau.
Snap out of it!
As author Alex Epstein writes, humanity has thrived by mastering the wild potential of an otherwise harsh and inhospitable world that's trying to kill us at every turn. And every living creature leaves an impact. What makes us unique is our ability to cooperate and innovate. Our desire to live long and prosper in a beautiful environment has produced a world with 8 billion people living better than ever that's also cleaner and literally greener than it was 100 years ago. This is the real story of the past 2 centuries. It's a story of creative triumph. Creativity is human nature. It is good. And there's no better way to embrace our creative nature than to create life itself. Human beings are, as Julian Simon said, the ultimate resource because of our incredible creativity. It's how we've transformed a wild, inhospitable world into one where billions of people flourish in even the harshest conditions. We've built everything from medieval cities thriving 20 feet below sea level to water park vacation spots in the blistering desert. If you've got a problem, humans can solve it.
Check out the hook while my DJ revolves it.
This is who and what we are. Not the cringe, but creators. We are creators. We aren't gods, but we are built in the image of one. So embrace your nature as a creative being by creating more of us. Have kids, get married and have kids. Continue your family and humanity's incredible, implausibly triumphant story. That is the message I have for you and anyone else who will listen. We are living through a truly ironic moment in our history. After thousands of years of brutal struggle for survival, we have built a civilization that has defied all of the doomsday predictions and delivered unprecedented opportunity, calm, and comfort to the majority of 8 billion people on this planet. But a new horizon is dawning, and our greatest challenges no longer lie from without, but from within.
It's in your nature to destroy yourselves.
Yeah. Major drag, huh?
Our widespread, fact-free fears of catastrophe are rooted in the very thing that enabled our stunning success, our incredible adaptability. Our brains continue to change over our entire lives, a capacity called neuroplasticity. We adapt to almost any environment and renormalize our expectations almost instantly.
Now we gotta make the best of it. Improvise, adapt to the environment, whatever, man, we gotta roll with it.
We refine our senses as our environment becomes more refined. We literally become more sensitive through a process known as perceptual learning. For example, studies have found that careful training can dramatically improve people's ability to detect subtle differences in colors. Experienced painters literally see the world differently than the rest of us.
This is your world, so you can do anything that you want to do.
Musicians hear the world differently. And comfortable, coddled first world children experience the world differently than we used to. This is the deeply human, inescapable reason for first world problems. Today's so-called microaggressions feel like actual aggression to those who've never experienced the brutal hardships that befell all of our ancestors. This is why America can elect and then re-elect Barack Obama, yet millions are willing to pretend that racism today is as bad as it was in Jim Crow Alabama. It's why we can vanquish acid rain, heal the ozone layer, conquer smog, clean our rivers, and green the earth, and yet have a generation that's easily convinced our environment is on the verge of collapse. Adversity made us strong and oversensitive. Wealth and comfort bring with them this psychological autoimmune disease. We are more sensitive to everything, including peanut dust. Evolution built us like tanks to survive the war of all against all in the brutal natural world. Now we're driving our tanks down suburban streets looking to aim those overpowered guns at smaller and smaller targets, both figuratively and literally. This is a major reason for our mental health decline in the rich first world. For all that's changed in our material world, we physically haven't changed as much as we think. We aren't much different than our ancient ancestors. We still have the same simple needs: food, friendship, family. We get nourished in nature. Countless studies find measurable benefits of spending as little as 20 minutes in green spaces. This is why the religion of Jean-Jacques Rousseau rings true, even to me. But we don't crave nature for its tranquility. We crave its adversity. We need that challenge. We are anti-fragile creatures. That's the real balance that's been thrown off by our wealthy world. And there's no healthier or more meaningful way to embrace adversity like having kids. And specifically, having them early, like we used to, and like our bodies are built for. All the personal reasons people give for delaying starting a family, all the costs kids impose, are better understood as benefits in today's wealthy world. Sleepless nights, chaos, financial insecurity, scary trips to the ER, poop everywhere. The struggles are real.
And they're spectacular.
We've convinced ourselves that we need to have everything figured out, financially and otherwise, before we start a family. But this is a fallacy. Having a family is what helps us figure everything out. Again, in today's world, yesterday's costs are tomorrow's benefits. Having kids in your 20s, early in your marriage when you're not making much money and still feel like a kid yourself, is good for them and for you. Today's sterilized, snowplow childhoods haven't done our fragile young people any favors. Kids don't need more stuff or more scheduling to thrive. They need less. Being young and broke as parents prevents you from spoiling your kids. It forces you to get creative. It forces them to deal with discomfort and boredom, to learn how to live with delayed gratification. And even being bullied a little bit can't hurt either on the helpful adversity front.
Kevin, you're such a disease.
Shut up.
We're better off when we learn early that we are strong and will survive whatever comes our way. A little bit of bullying goes a long way on that front, and there's no better bullies than your siblings. Just ask my sister. Having kids young is good for your relationships too. Shared adversity builds the strongest bonds. You share the struggles and the confusion of it all. You go into it convinced you'll screw up and bring your baggage along with you. Raising young kids beats you up together. Oh! And that's a good thing.
Oh, God. You make me cry.
It's a kind of marital hazing ritual.
Okay. Give me the wipes.
Studies of hazing in all sorts of groups, from families to firefighters to fraternity brothers, have found that shared pain fosters social solidarity. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger together. Our relationships, just like our immune systems, are anti-fragile too. No pain, no gain. But one of the most powerful forces I've experienced in becoming a father is one nobody prepared me for. It set me free. Free of my own ego, free of my attachments, free to go for broke. You see, my son was a surprise, so I lucked into this discovery early. I was 28 when he was born, and my wife Lisa and I were both working in television in New York City. His birth changed everything. It changed me. We were both workaholics, staying late most nights at the Nickelodeon offices where we met, and entertainment is an ego-driven business, and I was no different. Like every other snooty film school graduate, I wanted to be the next Steven Spielberg. I was and remain a striver. My career progress was the cornerstone of my young identity, which meant that I was constantly comparing myself to other people. And this is the fatal mistake too many of us make. Comparison, as they say, is the thief of joy. For a reason. Envy is a deadly sin. Wrapping up your identity in your goals creates a fatal cost for failure. Losing means you're a loser. And you are going to lose along the way. There's no such thing as overnight success. And then there's the success trap. Remember, we are remarkably adaptable to both adversity and delight. It turns out that pursuing pleasure and success is not a path to lasting happiness. Win an Oscar, you'll be on cloud 9 for a few months. Climb the corporate ladder and get a big new promotion. Same deal. New wears off. The water finds its level again. Even winning the lottery won't make you happy for long, and there are lots of studies to back that one up. Welcome to the hedonic treadmill. The selfish pursuit of success is a Sisyphean myth. This is what the red pill right-wingers and hustle porn purveyors on the internet get dead wrong. As Viktor Frankl notes in his classic book, Man's Search for Meaning,
happiness cannot be pursued. It must end soon. Doing so would be the same as urging people posed in front of a camera to say cheese, only to find that in the finished photographs their faces are frozen in artificial smiles.
For Frankl, happiness is a kind of bank shot, best achieved through the search for meaning. And that search involves three primary paths, each of which I found in becoming a father. We find meaning through loving relationships, triumphing over hardships, and creating value for others in our work. Having kids checks all of these boxes. It's not always fun, but it's filled with meaning. But it's Frankl's other insight that really changed everything for me when my son was born. Frankl notes that even in the worst circumstances, we all retain one final freedom, the freedom to choose how we respond to those circumstances. This isn't the last human freedom, it's the first. And becoming a dad activated it like nothing else. My family became the foundation of my identity. My selfish striving and ego became a negotiation I was willing to walk away from at any time. That is a powerful hand to play in life. People talk about wanting FU money so they can be free to pursue their dreams. Well, my son gave me that freedom before I hit 30, and it changed everything. I quit my job a few years later. I started a company with my wife, Lisa, and we moved here to Texas. We've survived near-death experiences, the pandemic, and personal attacks without losing any sleep. All of that is possible because we're free, because we know what matters. We know who we are, and everything else is gravy. This is the selfish reason to have kids. It will liberate you from your own worst enemy, your ego. It will set you free to pursue a life of meaning on which true happiness is built. It will force you to experience essential adversities that our modern world has made tragically optional. And as it turns out, being married with children is also the path to material wealth. Married men earn much more than unmarried men. Married couples end up 10 times wealthier. And kids don't, on average, make career advancement harder either. Sizable majorities of both men and women report having kids did not negatively impact their careers. But material well-being only goes so far. The environmentalists have gotten that one exactly right. The real benefit of getting married and having kids is that it's a ticket off that hedonic treadmill and on to the adventure of a lifetime.
Up, down, up, down. Oh, what a ride.
In fact, you get 3 lifetimes in one. You live your own life through your eyes. Then you see the whole world again through the beginner's mind of your child, but with a little more wisdom. And then, if you're lucky, you get to see it again as a grandparent. In a world desperate for meaning, our basic survival instinct has provided the best one of all: creation.